Hello and welcome to Sky 5 News. Hunter Davis here with a special report on the Cold War. This year marks the 53rd anniversary of when President John F. Kennedy inspired the nation with his "We Choose to Go to the Moon" speech. President Kennedy delivered this speech to the American public during the height of the space race, when the Soviet Union and the United States were engaged in the bitter Cold War. Tensions between the two nations were high during this time period, and the ability to assert military dominance in space was crucial to the national security of both the United States and Soviet Union. But let us not forget the fierce nationalism that also arose in both countries as a result of the space race. Let's now go over to Morgan for a more detailed report. Morgan?
Thank you, Hunter. Let us now take a deeper look into the major events that took place during the space race. It all started on October 4th, 1957, when the USSR launched Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite. This sparked a sense of nationalism and ignited a competition between the Soviet Union and the United States for dominance in space. Later that same year, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 2 into orbit. In fact, Sputnik 2 was carrying a small dog at the time it was launched, thus making the Soviet Union the first nation to send any animal into space. On January 31st, 1958, the Americans joined the race as they launched their first satellite into space, which carried scientific equipment and led to the discovery of the Van Allen radiation belt. This satellite was known as Explorer 1. In 1960, as the race progressed, the United States launched the first weather satellite into space, followed by the world's first camera-equipped spy satellite, known as the Discoverer 14. In 1961, the Soviet Union made Yuri Gagarin the first man to travel to space. However, everything changed on May 25, 1961, when President John F. Kennedy challenged the U.S. to go to the moon before the decade came to an end.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
The USSR continued to excel in the race, yet on July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and Edwin "Buzz" Aldrin became the first men to walk on the moon, thus winning the space race for America.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This historic milestone solidified a great sense of national pride among the citizens of the United States as they triumphed over the Soviet Union. Although the United States was victorious in the race, the Soviet Union did achieve great milestones, such as sending the first ever satellite into space in 1957, having the first human spaceflight in 1961, and conducting the first spacewalk in 1965. In the end, the space race created a ferocious competition that led to many benefits for the U.S. and the Soviet Union. Not only did military technologies advance and national pride increase, but significant scientific, economic, and medical advancements were achieved as well. Now back to you, Hunter.
Thank you, Morgan. Well, folks, it's almost that time again. The Olympics are right around the corner, and soon we'll be hearing about all the preparations being made on Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. But let's take a moment to look back on one of the most interesting sports rivalries to take place in the Olympics. You probably guessed it. We're talking about the East versus West, Communist versus Capitalist, Soviet versus American rivalry that kept the world on edge for the better part of 3 decades. This rivalry was non-existent until 1952, when Joseph Stalin finally agreed to enter his nation into the world's largest propaganda machine, the Olympics. Prior to this, the Soviet Union had been more focused on centralizing agriculture and strengthening their communist stronghold since the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. Their view of the Games as being pro-capitalist and anti-communist also provided a basis for a hatred of the Games. But there was no denying participation in the Olympic Games could put the Soviet Union onto a global stage. Should the Soviet Union arise as the winner of the Games, their country would surely be viewed as the strongest. But the Soviets were not the only ones who recognized the importance of the Games. The United States was also keenly aware of the benefits that would come from a victory in the Olympics. From a public relations standpoint, the Games became a battle between communism and capitalism. Both sides knew that a victory at the Olympics would equate to a symbolic dominance in political ideals. The rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union changed the face of the Olympics. No longer did the Games exist as a means to uphold international peace and brotherhood. They existed as a demonstration of rivalry between the Communist East and Capitalist West. Soon the entire world turned their attention to the exhibition. Now Morgan, we know that success at the Olympic Games was important to the Soviet Union and the United States, but to what extent were they willing to go?
Well, Hunter, before an athlete could represent his or her country, they had to be selected. The Soviets tasked special trainers to seek out talented young children with natural athletic ability. It was not uncommon for trainers to look for potential in kindergarten classes or from people on the streets. Despite the hard work and dedication put into their training, athletes were prohibited by rules and regulations from being paid professionally if they wanted to compete in the Games. The Soviet Union worked around this obstacle by providing their athletes with government jobs that they did not have to attend. This enabled the athletes to place all of their focus on training. As a result of the intense training and rivalry, the Soviet Union and United States dominated the Olympic Games and won far more medals than any other country between 1952 and 1988. They finished in either first or second in every Summer Olympic Game up until the late 1980s. During this time period, the tactic of beating you at your own game developed as a means to humiliate the other side and deliver a national black eye. In the summer of 1972, the Soviet Union beat the United States at the basketball game with a final score count being 51-50. This had been the first time since basketball was added to the Games in 1936 that the U.S. did not win gold. This was a humiliating and crushing defeat for the United States. However, in the 1980 Winter Olympics held in Lake Placid, New York, the United States national hockey team performed a miracle on ice. The U.S. and Soviet Union hockey teams were pitted against each other in a game that would define the era. The Soviet national hockey team was made up of seasoned hockey players who had won 6 gold medals in previous Olympic Games. The United States national hockey team consisted of collegiate amateurs and was often seen as the underdogs in the fight. Despite the disadvantage the American team held, they miraculously pulled through and won the game 4-3. An announcer went on to exclaim in the final moments of the game, "Do you believe in miracles?" And it soon became one of the most recognized quotes in sports history. The game greatly solidified nationalism in the United States and went on to stand as a symbolic victory of capitalism over communism. The historic game even inspired the 2004 movie Miracle. But just as rivalry between the Soviets and Americans could inspire competition at the Olympics, it could also prevent it. In 1980, the United States boycotted the Olympics over the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan. And in 1984, the Soviet Union boycotted the Olympic Games in response to the U.S.-led boycott of the 1980 Games. No one truly benefited from this, and the demonstration was far more of an exercise of power and influence over the Olympic Games. The rivalry between the U.S. and the Soviet Union eventually gave way as the East German athletes took center stage. Trainers had treated their unsuspecting athletes with steroids to improve their performance. As a result, the relatively small country of East Germany triumphed in the 1972 Montreal Summer Olympics, where they had won 40 gold medals. Sadly, though, many of the East German athletes went on to suffer health problems later in life as a result of the steroid use. Such a tragic story for such brilliant athletes.
It truly is. Well, folks, that's all we have time for today. I hope to see you all back here tomorrow. This is Hunter Davis, signing off.